Well, I'm so excited to talk to you, Cheri. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for writing a book with us. Thank you for writing a book at all. This is such a joy.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I had no choice but write this book, so I'm excited to talk to you about it.
Well, tell me about that. I always like to start with, like, how did you decide to write a book? Although, as you put it, maybe how did this book decide to come out of you?
This book chose me, honestly, because for 10 years, I struggled to become a mother. And I went through just about everything that a person could endure to achieve that goal. I went through loss. I went through, surrendering my body in all ways. I went through NICU experiences, the neonatal ICU, and I ultimately went through a custody battle that was very public and precedent setting. So at the end of that journey, it was like, how am I going to make it so that this wisdom doesn't just die with me? What can I do to make meaning out of this suffering that I've been through? And I think the best way to do that is to figure out how you can help somebody else. So that's really how this book was born. And it was really kind of one of those shining moments like, ta-da, you're going to have to do this. And so that's really how Mission Motherhood was born.
I love it. Was there sort of one epiphany? Was there just like a growing sense that you had to teach? Did people kept telling you, oh my gosh, you should write a book about this?
I was in the middle of the lawsuit thinking that there was a good chance that I was going to lose or have to share parental rights of my son that I had conceived on my own using an anonymous sperm donor. There was a good chance that I was going to lose custody to a man who wasn't his father simply because we were legally married at the time.
Wow.
We were legally separated for 4 years, but technically married. And, I had pursued my own independent pregnancy. And 4 years later, even after saying that filing papers saying that he knew he was not the father, he reversed his position 4 years later and sued me for custody of my son. So I was in the middle of that, and I thought, this is crazy. We end up sometimes in our lives thinking this can't be happening. And that was the moment. And I said, I need to share all of this and how we got here, because other women might fall into some of these same traps. And so I owed it to future generations to do it.
Yeah. I think that's the basis of some of the very best books. They're service oriented, they're mission oriented, and they're born of this really unique life experience. Sometimes extreme hardship, often extreme hardship of a wide variety. So how do you sort of pitch this book? It's for aspirant mothers. It's for women attempting to start their family with or without husbands across like a whole set of sort of life circumstances or timings.
Right. My mantra is, if the glass slipper doesn't fit, screw the fairy tale. And so, the idea is that I think many of us come into the journey of adulthood believing the societal norms, that we're going to meet the person of our dreams at the right time, we're going to get pregnant easily, we're going to have this glorious family we've always wanted, and we're going to live happily ever after. But for some of us, the journey doesn't quite go like that. And sometimes we pursue career for a long time, like I did. Sometimes we have relationships that don't work out, and that causes that fairy tale not to come together exactly as we'd planned. And for people like me, women like me, I thought that if I didn't get married, didn't meet that perfect person, didn't find someone who was great to have kids with, that was the only path to motherhood. And so I made a lot of mistakes along the way believing that false premise. And I want future generations of women to realize that that's one plan, and maybe that's the perfect plan, but there can still be wonderful plans that don't look like that. So really my goal, and I wrote this for women who need to know what their full range of options are, and for women who are pursuing unconventional paths to motherhood, non-traditional paths to motherhood.
I love it. Once you've had the epiphany to write the book, let's talk about sort of the getting oriented to like what that would mean and what maybe some of your expectations were going into the journey of like becoming an author.
So I had written a lot of stuff during this process. I actually felt like I kind of wrote the whole book, but it was boring as hell. I mean, it was all the facts.
Were you writing journals? Were you blogging? Were you?
It really just started pouring out of me throughout the process. Like, this is a chapter, this is a chapter, this is a chapter. So, and we were in COVID, I think, at the time that some of this. So what else are you going to do, right? So I had this time when I wasn't homeschooling my children and going absolutely insane. And I started writing and writing and writing. And I was like, this is okay. But it's not great. And I want to do something great. And so I started to look around for what would be the best partner to write with. And I mean, I have a marketing degree. I know how to write. I had an English minor. Like, I'm not a bad writer, but okay wasn't good enough for me. So I found Scribe and I reached out to the team, and frankly, I had sticker shock as to what it would cost to write a book. And I was like, oh my God, I had just spent, I can't even tell you, an obscene amount of money on my divorce and court case. I mean, to defend my son alone, it was $250,000 just
Oh my God.
to defend my son against this one piece. So I had already been sort of bleeding cash. And so here it was, it was going to be an investment, as it should be. But I wasn't prepared to make that investment at the time. And one of my friends said, hey, there are a bunch of people who write books around, so just go find one of those. It's like, a couple $1,000s. So I did that. And that was a journey. I didn't know that writing a book was going to be as hard and as time consuming as having my kids. That's what ended up being the thing, because I decided to go the cheap route, and I found these like fly-by-night places that were not interactive, that didn't do good writing. And I spent probably a year and a half going through a frustrating, poor quality process with somebody who, was supposed to be helping me, but they weren't really serious about it. So at the end of that, probably 18 months or so, I cut bait and I said, you know what? I gotta go back to Scribe. I gotta go back to Scribe. And that was really the moment. You guys were actually in a transition at that time. That was the moment when things really started to come together.
Once you got on board with Scribe and
Once
sort of made
I decided that this is something really worth investing in, that my story and the impact I wanted to make was worth investing in, was the moment that this turned around.
Yeah, I love that. I love so much about that story, because your focus on taking it from good to great, your focus on making the investment for the book and for yourself to signify that it's something like so important to you. There's a great Benjamin Franklin quote about this. I hope to get right. The bitterness of low quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten.
That is so true, so true. And I was sitting there thinking, this is something that I want generations of women to read. Do I want it to suck? I mean, this has my name on it. I don't want it to be like that. So that was the beginning.
Yeah, I had the exact same feeling. You really want it to be quality, and these books are going to live forever. These books are going to outlive us. And when you signal, that something is high quality, well designed, well put together, it does make it more likely that people will pick it up, respect the contents of it, and really adopt it. And when the mission is as important as motherhood, then it's an important attribute to have. Okay, so something I like to ask authors, and this is not specific to your Scribe journey, but just your author journey. What was your low point and what was your highest point?
Well, I think that low point was when I had gone the wrong path with the wrong kind of company. And I was like, how hard does all of this have to be, people? I'd already gone through so much, and I kind of wondered, I was tired of struggling. And so I was so demoralized by some of those parts. But like with my other journey, I just pulled myself up by my bootstraps and I said, this is not going to prevent me. Stubbornness is probably one of the greatest qualities that I have. And I said, this isn't going to prevent me from doing it. And so I think that was really one of the lowest moments for me, when I was trying so hard, but it really wasn't coming together.
When it's stubbornness for a good cause, we call it determination or perseverance. Let's give yourself some
Give
credit.
me a little credit. Yes,
Yeah,
that's true.
yeah.
That's true.
Okay, and what about your highest point so far?
The highest point for me really was collaborating with my scribe. And so I have to give a shout out to Amanda. She really dug in and understood my voice and my, the sentiments and the kind of book that I wanted to write. And when I started to see the writing come out from her that was based on all our interviews and my writings, she actually took some of my writings and made them better. And when I started to see that, I could just feel it inside. And I was like, this is really going to happen. And it's the quality product that I want. And so that was really, I think, the highest point to realize that we were going to be able to get there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that feeling that like you're seeing and you're starting to see it really come together. The fog is sort of lifting and you see moments where the final product peeks through. That's so fun and so satisfying.
It was probably when I read the introduction for the first time, I was like, holy expletive. This is really, this is really good. And, then the first thing I did was I took it to my mother. And because she was there throughout the whole journey with me, and this book is kind of a love letter to my mother because she's the person who taught me the kind of mother I wanted to be, unconditional love and acceptance and things like that. And so when I saw her start to cry, that's when I knew that this was going to achieve the desired result.
That's incredible. Sometimes the most poignant moments is just, you have an audience of one as an author and just
100%.
Showing somebody something in print and the transformation. It really shows the impact that some people have had on you in your life. That's amazing. Yeah. Shout out to Amanda. Shout out to moms. All moms.
All moms.
We appreciate you. We wouldn't be here without you.
That's right. And it's no accident that my book is coming out right before Mother's Day, because that was really kind of the gift to all future mothers that I wanted to bring.
I love it. And what a great story to tell. How did this book change through the creative process? You worked on this over a course of many years. You had this epiphany in this dark moment in your life. You spent a while writing, then you spent a while working with another company, then you spent a while, basically starting over. It sounds like pretty close to it with Scribe, and now we're on the eve of this book coming out. What did you envision at the very beginning, and what creative pieces did you maybe have to like let go of or grab onto, or perceptions that you changed throughout this?
Well, the biggest challenge for me was that I wanted a book that was gripping and immersive. So all of my details kind of fell short on that because I really had to figure out a way to bring the experience to life. So my standard and my challenge that I gave to Amanda was, I want this book to feel like you're sitting across from a great girlfriend, one of your closest girlfriends, having a glass of wine or maybe a bottle of wine at this point, and you're, sharing some of the deepest parts of yourself. So I wanted the book to feel immersive and intimate and gripping. And to do that, you have to put in an insane amount of detail to be able to convey that to someone on a page. And that's really what Amanda helped me with, is to bring out those details. And she would ask questions about it that would bring those out, which if I was doing this on my own, that never would have happened. So it was really that partnership where she helped me bring that immersive experience to life. And my early reviewers were saying, I can't put this down, and even I knew the story and I still couldn't put it down. And so, I think that's a mission accomplished just in and of itself, is that we achieved that immersive feeling.
That's incredible. I love that as a sort of a tone that you set. I think it's really helpful to have as you're writing something to visualize, like a feeling almost that you want to visualize, or a real life interaction to simulate that with the writing. It's super. I mean, it's so fun to collaborate. I think most people imagine writers as, sitting under a bare bulb with a laptop or a typewriter or a notepad, and things come so much more naturally when you can have a conversation about the book and it emerges from this dialogue, especially when it's your kind of book where you want it to feel like a dialogue between the author and the reader, having someone to sort of bounce those ideas off of and pull ideas out of you and, just
100%.
tease things apart. So fun.
100%. I knew that she was, even though Amanda wasn't like my current audience because she has a family and, she's not going through this particular journey. When I would share something and it would hit her emotionally, I knew I was on the right track. And so I personally feel that the best creative processes are collaborative in nature. And so that's what this was.
Okay, so now we're on the eve of publishing. We're getting very close for you in particular. So the tension is tension's building. Oh yeah, hold it up.
I have it here.
Oh, I love it. I love it. How did you feel unboxing that for the first time?
Amazing. As I said, 5 years of toil and 15 years in total. It feels like one of the others, second to my children. It feels like the most significant thing I've done in my life.
That's incredible. So what have you learned about the publishing process now that you did all the work on the manuscript, you got a solid manuscript, now you've been through, the cover and the layout, you got all your final files ready, the book is about to go out. How's it been? Like, what did you learn? What have you enjoyed the most?
It is a really time-consuming and detailed process. I mean, it is a painstaking process of things that I am not particularly interested in at some points because I'm like the creator and process isn't my bag, but Scribe does all those things for you. And I was, I think, surprised at how regimented the process was in a very good way, that there were, you asked something about, well, what were the biggest surprises? To me, the great thing is there's no surprises in sense of Scribe makes it so that there's no bad surprises. Kind of what the process has been, and you guys have been through this so many times that it's really a science. And so I appreciated that because I knew that I was being shepherded through a process that had been well thought through, well orchestrated, and it felt like that the entire time.
That's fantastic. I'm so glad to hear. We pride ourselves on process and predictability, and no stone left unturned, no detail left unaddressed. So I'm glad that was apparent to you. A lot of authors are surprised at how small. Not just how small the tasks are, but how small the decisions are that they get to make. I mean, nuanced decisions about layout or the color of the paper or the binding or the adjusting the spine for the cover design, like all the little details that really make it polished and perfect and shine and stand out.
It's kind of like building a house. You never know like how many different kinds of toilets there are, or or light plates and things like that. And so sometimes it can feel very overwhelming unless you have someone who's guiding you through the process the way that Emmy did, my project manager did. So I really appreciate her as well.
Good. Yeah, Emmy's fantastic. I actually use that analogy a lot, the building a house. It's like, people do build their own house. It just takes a long time and things might not be perfect, and you might spend a lot of time on YouTube and a lot of trips to the hardware store, and a few broken bones and cuts and scrapes, but you'll get it done.
And it might blow down with the first big wind if you don't do it properly. So same kind of thing.
Yes, but yeah, it is a drawn out process with a lot of detail and a lot of effort, and it requires a lot of different skills, a lot of different trades that have to be sort of well coordinated throughout the process. So now that you're a process expert, you're about to have your launch come out. What would you advise other authors or potential authors who are sort of maybe they're earlier, close around where you were with the epiphany? Maybe they feel they have a book brewing. Maybe they have had that moment where they're like, oh my God, I need to share this with somebody, but they haven't yet set off on the really the journey to become an author.
I would say that if you are really intent on this being something that's lasting, be willing to invest in it. That's my biggest thing, is anything that you're that passionate about that you want to write it, you want to make it the best that it can be. And so don't be penny wise, pound foolish would be my first thing that I would say there. The second thing I would say is really make sure that you connect with the person who's going to be your scribe, because they are going to really be the most critical person in the whole process. So I love the fact that I could interview multiple people and that there were a number of good candidates of people that I could work with. And I really did feel that Amanda and I were on the same wavelength, and she's even in Austin with me. And so, we've met and things like that. So for me, it was really important that I have somebody that I could actually reach out and touch, and I knew we were close by and things. But, I think finding that synergy, maybe that's not your criteria, but finding somebody that you really feel that connection with is so critical.
Yeah, that's a fantastic advice. Going into your launch, we're a couple days out, I think, as we're recording this. So when you're listening,
T-minus 8 days.
8 days before.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
Very exciting. The final countdown. What are you planning? How are you looking at this? What are the dominoes that you're sort of setting up to get the book in the hands of the people that need it?
I'm actually working. Well, for one, we have a launch party in Austin next Wednesday at one of the places that's featured in the book called Jack Allen's Kitchen, which is a great place for girlfriends to go and have that cocktail. After that, really, we've been building kind of the foundational pieces. We've been building the websites. The other big project for me is I'm starting a nonprofit as part of this as well, which is called Cheri's Choice. And the goal of that organization is really to bring education, counseling, and community support to all those women who are either starting those journeys or don't even know what the journey is about, who are still just in those societal norms. Our objective is to take education to universities and things like that so that we can go to young women who this isn't even on their radar right now, and give them a foundation of good information so that they carry that with them into their journeys of adulthood. And so that's really one of my biggest passions, is that this book kind of be the personal view, but that the organization carry that out and help other women navigate their own paths.
I love that. I think, we often coach authors that promoting and getting your book into the right hands is a marathon, not a sprint. So by all means, nail your launch, but buckle up for the long run and just do something for your book, every week or every month for many years to come. And it sounds like you've got a great plan for that, surrounding the nonprofit and the outreach and, just doing the work to educate people who know they need it. And this is such an important topic and such I think a timely message, and one that's, extremely personal and well informed by your personal experience. And I'm so excited to see it out in the world and see the impact it can have.
Yeah, and I will say I'm actually working with a couple people who have been in the Scribe ecosystem for, PR outreach and things like that. And so I guess the other thing that I would recommend to people is understand that Scribe isn't just one company. There's a whole ecosystem of people that have worked with other authors. And so, the community goes far beyond just the book writing process. There's other people that you can work with that know how to take it then from book completion to TEDx speaking to the PR and the outreach to podcasts and journal, magazines and newspapers and all of that. And so, I'd say that it is a whole different world that you can bring yourself into.
Yeah, it's every author has a different journey, different priorities, different needs. And while the book publishing process is the same for almost everybody, at least on a technical basis, what authors do with their books is, as varied as the authors and the books themselves. So it is very fun. And I'm sure over the coming months, you'll have a lot of creative new ideas as you work on getting this out and talk with authors, talk with women, get this book out. The launch party is so fun, and I'm so excited for you to have that moment. That's going to be a real, I think a core memory, a champagne moment for you.
Yes, exactly. And I am measuring my success in babies. Actually, that's my metric. Instead of, number of books sold and stuff, it's number of babies born. So I'm going to have to keep some kind of counter and try to estimate the number of babies.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, put it on the website. That's an incredible line, actually. Yeah, never stop saying that. That's beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Cheri, for writing this book, for sharing your experience, for passing on your wisdom, for choosing Scribe, and for taking on this mission. It meant a lot to me and the whole rest of the team to be able to kind of support you through this journey, and we hope to continue and see you make a lot of babies with your book. Not in that way, but you guys, you know what I mean.
I'm done making the babies, but yes, I agree with you on that. And I just really can't thank the team enough for everything that you've done to help make this possible, because it really meant the world to me to be able to see this book come to life. And I know that you guys were, a huge part of it. So thank you.
Well, you were incredible in trusting us, to do a great job and show up for you coming out of that transition. And we're one of the first people to take a leap and believe in us. And hope we repaid that many times over in professionalism and excellence and providing a good experience. And now we're rooting for you and supporting you, Team Cheri, all the way. I look forward to updates on how this goes, and looking at the baby scoreboard.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it so much.